Okay, here we go. Let us call this meeting of the Dalton Selectboard to order, please. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law 30A and 20, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Dalton Selectboard will be conducted via remote participation. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the open session portion of the meeting may do so by viewing on Dalton Community Cable TV, channel 1301, or via Zoom. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the open session portion of the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right, this meeting is now called to order, and all those who are able, please stand for the pledge. And Dan Esco, would you please lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Dan.
Sandy, you can slide that.
Okay, Brittany, would you please do the roll call?
Yes. Ooh, let me unmute. Okay, just
You're
unmuted.
right to the edge.
We have Robert Bishop,
Okay,
Here.
good.
Joseph Diver,
Here.
Dan Esco,
Here.
John Boyle. John Boyle?
Dan, you might be on mute.
He's
John,
here.
you want to mute? He's here.
Unmute him. Yeah, he's not muted. Okay, and Mark Strout.
Here.
Also, our interim town manager, Sandra Albano.
Here.
Okay, we have no minutes from last meeting, so we go right to item 5, which is the public to address the board. This is a time when the public may address the board on any item listed on the meeting agenda or any issue or matter of the town. If you intend on addressing the board at this time, we ask you to do the following. Use our Zoom link or dial 684-6111, extension 28. Please identify yourself by name, address, or the company/institution you represent. The public address to the board segment will last no longer than 30 minutes.
Hunch it over your shoulder.
Please make your comments concise and try not to repeat statements made by others. Please address your comments to the board chair. Discussion or debate on any issue may not take place at this time. Questions on procedural matters may be answered by the chair or the designee. Please be cordial and respectful of others. If anyone wishes to be recognized when the board discusses an agenda item, please. Or any damage or anything that may occur, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this money, Sandy, this, I understand this right, this money goes right to the general fund, does it not?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So this will go right to general fund to be used for normal costs.
So it goes to the revenue of the general fund, so it increases our receipts and therefore then offsets tax.
Okay. And it increases by 1.5% over the 20 years, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, is there anyone else out there that has any comments or questions? Then I'll entertain a motion to enter an agreement.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded. A roll call vote. Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Divers?
Yes.
Mr. Esco?
Yes.
Mr. Strout?
Yes.
And Mr. Bishop, yes. And we will sign this, and within 14 days, we should receive, all the select board has to sign it, so we could either If it's easier for the board to do, we can send it around electronically, or we can just stop by the office and sign it, either way.
Is Joe's electronic signature okay with that, Sam?
Yeah, that's it.
Honestly, yeah, I think the only issue is if, for whatever reason, if when we record it, sometimes we get pushback if it's not original. Safest thing to do is for me to confirm that, and I'll just, I guess, contact the chairman and confirm if electronic is fine, and then that would work for us.
Yeah, let's just do this. Let's just put it over to town hall and we'll sign it, okay? Everybody will stop by and sign it.
That's all right. Yeah, I guess that's okay. We'll work with it.
All right, thank you very much, and congratulations, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We're excited.
Okay, so are we. So that's good. It's good for Dalton. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay. Okay, number 7. Acceptance of Dalton Community Cable franchise fee for the second quarter. Mr. Divers, do you have that?
I do not.
Okay. All right, it's got. To the select board, please consider this formal request to transfer the franchise fee of $28,494.82 recently received from Charter Communication to the Dalton Community Cable Association. There's understanding that this fee is for April, May, and June of 2020. I'll entertain a motion on that.
So moved to accept, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Boyle.
Yes.
Mr. Digger.
Yes.
Mr. Esco.
Yes.
Mr. Stroud.
Yes.
Mr. Bishop. Yes. Okay. Okay, next on the agenda is the Dalton Police Department grant acceptance for...
That building's not undercooked. Oh, Mr. Barnett, we can mute.
Okay, next on the agenda is Dalton Police grant acceptance for FY 2020 Coronavirus Emergency Supplement Funding Program.
Can I have this one, Bob? I have the last one for some reason.
Yes, no problem.
So, whereas the Dalton Police Department has received a grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security Office of Grants and Research, and has been awarded $8,844.18. And the state funding from the FFY 2020 Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program, and whereas the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, and 53A and a half empowers the select board in its sole discretion and authority to approve the acceptance of grants or gifts of funds by any officer or department on behalf of the town. Mr. Chairman, then therefore it is resolved that the select board, so I guess I'll ask for a motion for accepting this grant.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further comments? The only comment I'd like to make is I do believe Sergeant Furlong initiated this, so thank you. Okay, roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Bob? Yes. Oh, sorry, Mark.
Yes.
Okay.
information, Chief Anthony Raila, for your information. I do have a couple of questions on this.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, getting some feedback.
What are your questions?
Yeah. So we're just getting feedback from Sandy's line. I think we're good now. So, does the town of Dalton need to do anything special for a permanent reserve program? Because we haven't had one for a number of years. Is there any other rules or regulations at the state level that we need to go through?
I'll defer that to the chief, so.
Mr. Chairman, a little broken up, but if I may, in this particular instance, Officer Greg Stefanik has been a part-time police officer for the town for the last 12 years, and he is he's been an intermittent part-time officer. He has a full-time job. His goal is to remain as a part-time officer. He's a very valuable member of the department, as he is our firearms instructor, our armorer, and he also works shifts when they're available and we need someone. He's always orders to step up to the plate. And the reason we're looking for the permanent intermittent appointment is, until this point, what happened was I believe every 2 years, it is a civil service position. And whenever the department requested a list to hire, Officer Stefanik would have to refuse because he didn't want a full-time appointment. And it's my understanding that with civil service, he's done that twice already, and if he refuses a third time, he'll be taken off the list, and we'll lose him as an officer. The only commitment we make to Officer Stefanik is that we'll keep him as a part-time officer. In terms of what that gives him over any other part-time officer, it really doesn't give him anything other than that. He will remain as a part-time officer. That's his goal. It's not to be a full-time officer. It's not to give up his full-time job. He's been doing this for 10, 12 years, and he's an exemplary officer. And I think he's definitely worth keeping and making permanent. The commitment to the town is just to let him work as a part-time employee. There's no more money. There's no benefits for that type of thing. It's just a permanent appointment as a part-time officer.
Yeah, the reason for my question, Chief, is I think other officers have left the department because they hit that threshold, and I think that there has to be, I believe there's something at the state level that we need to have a permanent reserve program at the state level identified through civil service, which we don't. I believe. That's why I'm asking the question, because other officers have stepped away because we did not have a permanent program.
I'm sorry, Mr. Davis, you're coming all broken up, and I really didn't get any of that.
Yeah. Mark, did you hear me on that one? Is it my end or the chief's end?
I heard you, Joe. I heard you. Maybe this is the first step forward towards that. We'll go this route, appoint a permanent reserve or intermittent, and go from there, I guess. I definitely think it's about time we did this. I mean, he's been the system hasn't been utilized the way it was supposed to be utilized. So
yeah, I have some concerns of the last civil service step that happened in January that I haven't brought forward. That I really want to make sure that we put the program through the state and make sure we have an approved state program.
Can we just do this pending state approval?
We could take a vote, and I could be defeated on the vote, Bob, but I won't accept it. I won't approve it.
I'll make the motion to appoint Greg Stefanik as a permanent intermittent reserve officer.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Ms. Boyle.
Yes.
Mr. Strout.
Yes.
Mr. Esco.
Yes.
Mr. Diver.
No.
Mr. Bishop, yes. Okay.
Mr. Bishop,
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, next on the agenda is the possible appointment of 2 acting sergeants, and I'll turn this over to the chief at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the first things that I noticed when I had assumed command about 5 weeks ago, and the thing that concerned me from the beginning was the command structure of the Dalton Police Department, or the lack of. And it's not a criticism, but rather it's a situation where we essentially do not have a command structure. You have a chief and you have a sergeant, and the sergeant is responsible for numerous duties and numerous programs that really, I believe, need to be shared. And the way to do that is take that command pyramid and flatten it. And the way to do that is you create a sergeant for each of the shifts. And here's the situation. We have a lot of new part-time officers. We have some very inexperienced full-time officers. And without that supervision, the liability for the town just raises exponentially. And with a commander on each shift, an experienced officer that serves as a sergeant, what you'll have is you'll have that guidance, you'll have those folks in place to train their shifts. They'll have a command staff with 3 sergeants that will report directly to the chief, and with that, now you've got 4 people planning for this Dalton Police Department as we move forward. Let me just say, Sergeant Furlong has done an absolutely phenomenal job. But when you hear the kinds of things that this man has to do, you have to ask yourself, how can one person do all of this and then still be in command of his shift? And let me just read for you the things that Sergeant Furlong does. He's in charge of scheduling, annual assessments, special event planning or emergency response coordination, equipment maintenance and acquisition, vehicle maintenance acquisition, breath test machine, OIC, firearms licensing, payroll, liaison with DA's office, case assignments, referrals, reviews the daily log, sends officers notifications, update calls, field training supervisor, review and approve arrest, offense reports, accident reports, supervise patrol operations and investigations, court notifications, grant writing, policy revisions, overwriting, UCR reporting, ECW, data downloading, recording, and reporting to the Executive Office of Public Safety, Internal Affairs Investigations, on-call supervisor most days and nights, public records officer, in-service instructor, attend traffic, emergency management, finance meetings, and assist with the yearly budget. Now, we're also expecting Sergeant Furlong, an evening shift where he works and does all of these things, to also serve as a patrol officer, patrolling the town of Dalton, as the officers up in the other shifts do, and there's 2 assigned. So if you take that list that I just read, and this list came from Sergeant Furlong, because I asked him to please put something together, I wanted to better understand. Now you take that list I just read and let's split it 3 ways. And now let's see what we have for areas. No. Responsibility. Now you've got 3 people who are able to do these things on the shifts that they work. Sergeants is one working the day shift, one working the evening shift, and one the overnight shift. And again, the span of control all of a sudden is manageable. And I wish I could say from Chief Bartels from 2006 and Chief Go in 2012 who tried to do the same thing. And they were spot on with what they were looking to do. It's a matter of, protecting the town. It's working with especially inexperienced officers at this point. So I think that it's a wise move. I think it's something that the town will benefit from, and it's not going to cost you very much money this fiscal year. And I'll tell you why. We did the math, and we looked at the way we wanted to make these promotions, and I'll explain that in 1 second. If we took away all-in pay that these folks were getting to assist new officers, and then figured out what we were going to pay them, which was not the same pay as Sergeant Furlong, because he's been a sergeant for several years. And it came to, for 2 acting sergeants, $15 a day. That's the net cost to the town, and it's including in our budget this year. My plan, after looking at the department, we have 2 corporals that, again, are in that very tall pyramid that report to the sergeant, and the sergeant reports to me. We take those 2 corporals, they're on separate shifts, and promote them. They're long-time serving police officers, affected in the department, and I'll mention their names right now. Day shift is a 22-year veteran, and that's Officer Drought, and the midnight officer corporal that will be promoted to sergeant is Officer Jeff Powell. Again, about a 16-year veteran of the Dalton Police Department. Both of these officers are very capable. They got the experience, they have the street know-how, and they're very good at working with the younger police officers. So, having said that, that's my pitch to you. I think it only benefits the town, and it gives us a chance to work together to bring this department forward. There's a lot of things that we'd like to do, and quite frankly, it's not fair to me. Okay. Did you lose me there?
Chief, you know, you are breaking up a bit, sir. Yep.
Okay. Anyways, that's essentially my pitch to you. I've looked at several departments in the area. I visited the chiefs over the last few weeks. Adams, I talked to the lead chief, I visited Lennox, and we looked at the same type of issues, what their goals were, and actually what they have for command and staff, and the departments are size. So I don't think it's and I guess that's probably about, that's my pitch to you.
Okay, Chief, I got a question.
The questions I'm happy to answer.
Now, this has been approved by the union, has it not?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Has this been approved by the union? The patrol officers union?
I'm sorry, Mr. Bishop, I'm not picking you up at all.
Oh,
Yeah, Bob, if I could.
You're coming in all broken up.
Yeah.
Sandy actually sent out an MOU right before the meeting, probably about a half hour beforehand, with the union.
okay, so it's done by the union, okay.
I don't know if my connection or
Hey, Bob.
Okay, is there any other questions? Oh, there.
Bob, I had a couple of questions.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah. One, don't sergeants have to earn their appointment through civil service?
Yes, they do. And
Well, then why are we circumventing this instead of going by the civil service list?
that's why, if I may answer that, Mr. Boyle, we are not circumventing, and told them what our intent was, which was because we wanted to do this now, was to establish the acting positions, and they were in agreement. And the other thing that we're looking at is moving forward with permanent assignments through civil service. So this has been run through civil service, and this is the way that acting appointments can be made under civil service. And then we go through the process where permanent sergeants will be selected, and there'll be a selection process where folks will be open to apply for these positions. And I believe the minimum, is 3 years experience under civil service to apply for the job. And that's the process that we're looking at going forward. This gives us immediate remedy, so we don't have to wait 3 months, and we can move forward with this plan now.
It would be important to note that if someone in the department took, you want me to start that question again?
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Boyle,
Would it be appropriate to note that if someone in the department took the civil service exam for sergeant and passed it, they would then replace these acting sergeants?
Mr. Mr. Bishop and Mr. Boyle, I didn't pick up any of that, I'm sorry. It just, I didn't pick up it all.
Tony, can you call in the number with your cell phone?
Hey, Bob, give me a minute, I'll text, Chief, and, see if he
Yeah,
comes.
ask him to call in, Joe,
Okay.
so we can hear him.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
about 15 minutes before the start of this meeting, we received a copy of a memorandum of understanding regarding the sergeant's appointments and the union. Is that something we can discuss now, or is that for...
yes. I'd like to get to the chief online first.
Yes, certainly. But basically, it says a few things. But one of the things I noticed is, whereas the town intends to requisition a civil service eligible list from the Massachusetts Human Resource Division to fill the sergeant's position on a permanent basis. So there is a stated intention to actually fill these positions through the civil service program, and that the acting sergeants, certainly if they wanted to continue, would have to go through that process. So I don't know if that clarifies anything for Mr. Boyle's comments.
Yes, thank you, Dan, it does. So in essence, if they requisition a sergeant's position through civil service, and it's someone other than Officer Drought or Officer Powell, they would take the place of Officer Drought or Officer Powell.
Well, I think it goes on seniority list, John. If they both pass it, then I guess they get it. That's the way I understand it.
Yeah, but what if they don't take it?
They're gonna take it. They indicated they're going to.
All right.
That's what the chief told me anyways.
I mean, I think it would be wise till we get the results on the civil service list. It won't be that long. Plus, we'll have an opportunity to consult the finance committee on the financial ramifications of this, and also the select board. When the chief said it was $15 a day, that's per officer. That's $30 a day times
15 for both of them.
for both of them.
Yeah.
But next year they'll be receiving the full salary of a sergeant.
If the town approves it, this is just a pilot program.
I don't know. I don't see anything in here about a pilot program.
Well, it's an attempt to get it going.
Yeah.
It's something Chief Bartels tried to do and something Chief Cole tried to do.
Hey, I've got no problem with it. I got one final question for the chief. Does Sergeant Furlong approve of this?
I don't know if he's on yet. Joe, do you have any luck getting hold of the chief?
Yeah, I sent him a text and an email. He should be joining soon, Bob.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Let me see if I can.
I'm on the phone with Chief right now. He's trying to dial in.
Okay, thanks, Becky.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
would we be able to move forward with some of the other appointments while we're waiting for this to be resolved?
Yeah, we can do that. Is everybody in agreement to do that?
Yes.
Let's go to the next appointment, which would be for the appointment of the North Mountain Park Committee. Joe, do you have that?
I do, Bob.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the appointment of the North Mountain Park Committee as recommended by interim town manager Sandra Aldano, enclosed as a recommendation. For 1 sec.
It's from Glenn.
Accepted the resignation of Bud Hall as a committee member, and I'd like to ask the selectmen to approve the appointment.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I would just like to point out, Mr. Chairman, that Taylor's last name is misspelled on the letter from the interim town manager. It's Staubach, not Starbuck.
Okay. All right.
For the record.
Coffee then.
As
Okay.
in Roger,
Ah, yeah.
right? The same way he spelled his name? S-T-A-B-A-C-H?
Yes. S-T-A-U.
Yep. And also it doesn't have her address, which I believe is 104 North Street.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Am I supposed to
Hey,
answer?
Sandy, can you remove Zoom?
You just gotta mute.
Leave it phone number?
When you go to participants and mute everyone. Just mute all for a minute. Mute all at the bottom.
Is there any chance that this person is just trying to stay on the meeting so we just take the...
Now who's talking?
Just Bishop would be somebody I would unmute.
There you go. You muted all, which is good. So now you just have to mute Chief's login where it says Chief on the login. I think that's his call number in the 413 line.
Yellow.
Unmute him? Yeah, unmute.
And you want to unmute Bishop because he's
Hello?
Hey, Chief, we got you.
I'm in?
You're in.
Okay. Great. Sorry.
Where's Bishop?
at the top. Probably have to scroll.
Again, I missed so much of that. It was all garbled, so
Yeah, Chief, if you
now I'm
can
listening to myself.
stay on your phone call and just, you might have a computer next to you with the Zoom still on. If you can close that so you don't get the feedback,
It's not
and just stay on
letting
your phone call.
Closed off the Zoom?
Just mute the Zoom.
Mute the Zoom.
Asked to unmute, I guess. And then he can just click ask to unmute. Or not Richard.
And
That's Richard. No, okay, he's fine. He's
Okay, let's move our motion with for Taylor.
You don't have to tell.
All those in favor, let's see, John. Oh, he's muted.
John,
Joe,
Because he's trying to do
Yes.
roll call.
let's see, Dan.
yes,
Bob, yes, and I saw John raise his hand, yes. So,
And Mark's back on as well.
Mark, do you agree with Taylor?
Yes.
Okay, so she is appointed. Thank you. Okay, so Chief ready now?
Did we unmute yellow? That's all you can do is
All right, Chief, you can take your phone off mute.
there, you're fine. You're good.
There you go. You're good.
Is that it?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay.
Okay, I think Mr. Boyle had a question for you,
Yeah.
Chief.
Chief, can you hear me? I was muted. I'm not sure if I'm unmuted or not.
You're good, John.
I'm good? Okay.
I can hear you, Mr. Boyle.
Okay, thanks. I think we cleared up the other areas I was concerned about. There was additional information that Mr. Esco had that, he forwarded to us, and it sounds good, the whole program. Again, just one final question. Does Sergeant Furlong support this endeavor?
Question was, Sergeant, does Sergeant Furlong support this endeavor? That was the question, Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
I shared my intentions with him, and the entire department, and I did not get any sense that he was not in favor.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions on the motion?
Doug, me. Oh.
I don't believe, was a motion actually made for this
Not a
yet?
motion yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the ratification of the appointment of the two sergeants as recommended by our town manager and supported by the chief of Officer Deanna Stroud and Officer Jeffrey Powell to the position of acting sergeants, which will be effective September 21, 2020.
It looked really weird. What did you do? I didn't do it. Oh, I muted myself. Thanks. It's really bizarre.
Okay, Joe, would you repeat that motion, please?
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the ratification of the appointments as put forward by our interim town manager, Sandra Albano, for the two acting sergeants. The appointment of Officer Deanna Stroud and Officer Jeffrey Powell to the position of acting sergeants will be effective September 21, 2020.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Bob is yes. And congratulations, we'll see if this works. The good thing about this, if it doesn't work, everything goes back to where it was. Okay? All right. Thank you. All right, now I gotta find my agenda again.
Everybody's.
Okay. The next one is to appoint a municipal approving authority. And Jane briefly filled me in on this. There's some new rules and regulations regarding people doing, with all the stuff going on at home with the kids and stuff, and sometimes there's gonna be more than 4 or 5 in a house, and there's gonna be, the state put out new rules, and Jane's gonna explain that, but we're gonna have to appoint her, hopefully, as somebody that goes around and making sure these state regulations are in place. Okay, Jane, you're on. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, Bob, I had heard that you were going to do it.
Yeah, you would have wanted me to do in that one.
All right. So as Bob had said, so with the advent of remote learning and also with the advent of hybrid models for schools, it's left a real big hole for people for childcare. So, even the preschools aren't very well equipped to have a child who's on a computer for most of the day learning or doing their lessons. And so what's being popped up is these pods, either through an organization like church groups or other, businesses, or even at home. Someone says, I can take in 4 kids, I'll watch them during the day. And so this is kind of out of the realm of what Early Education and Care, or EEC, program in Massachusetts has dealt with before. So what they did is they issued regulations or guidance in a document, and they're calling these places remote learning enrichment programs. And so in order to become a remote learning enrichment program, you need to have somebody who will approve it. So that's where every municipality CEO, which in the case of Dalton, I believe is the Selectboard, has to appoint what's called a municipal approving authority. And what that does is it gives that person the ability to sign off on these programs So, and what would be entailed with that is things like making sure that it's safe, making sure background checks are done, making sure they have internet access, and so on and so forth, checking in with the building inspector. So anyway, if the board would like for me to be our municipal approving authority, then that's certainly up to your discretion, and I'll do it.
We appreciate that, Jane. Is there any questions for Jane?
Yeah, Jane, just kind of revisit the conversation we had earlier today. Make sure you have all the support that you need with all the COVID programs that are coming through and the different, innovative ways of thinking through how to manage these situations. So look forward to your guidance and your leadership, and raise your hand when you do need that additional support and get creative around it. So
I appreciate that, Joe. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, motion to appoint Jane to acting, let's see, Municipal Approving Authority.
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept and ratify the appointment of Jane Smith to also the Municipal Approving Authority as recommended by our interim town manager, Sandra Albano.
Okay, is there a second?
Okay.
Thank you, John. All right, any discussion, any further discussion? I just want to thank Jane for stepping up and doing this, because it's not going to be an easy task on top of everything else she's got going on. So we really appreciate it. And if we can help in any way, please let us know. Okay, roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Bob, yes. Thank you again for stepping up, Jane. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next on the agenda. Jane, is that all you had for us tonight, or do you have anything else, or?
Well, I had some things for the COVID update if you guys are interested in it.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and do that? Because I didn't want to cut you off,
Okay.
sorry.
No, not at all. So COVID update. So we're working pretty heavily with the schools, with the public and nurses to establish a protocol in case there are and when there are cases in the school. Dr. Doyle has been really instrumental in trying to establish thresholds. So, and then the next thing we'll work on is really that public information piece. That is something that I do have a question for the select board. Ken Waldo had been the public information officer prior to his departure. And so I wasn't sure what the protocol is in Dalton at this point for a public information officer. And, Dan Filio might be a natural person to do it. But anyway, I feel like that's something that we should flesh out a little bit before we actually need it. My sister's kid, or her son's school, just got shut down with 5 cases of COVID, and the media takes notice, and I feel like we need to be really consistent with our messaging.
Okay, good point, yeah, because this has got everybody on pins and needles, so.
So that's something to think about. I don't know if, I can certainly talk to Dan about it. I know he's got his fingers in a lot of different pies, but,
He's
Yeah,
on
we add that to our next agenda, Bob, and then,
Yeah, he's on vacation right now, so.
yeah, Jane, Sandra, and crew can get together and figure out a recommendation there, and then bring it forward if we need to.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put it on next agenda.
As far as what Joe had spoken to with capacity support, Nancy Simons-Ruderman of Berkshire Safe Food has done food inspections for Dalton in the past. And so as a part of making sure that our food inspection program continues on as we try to help these places really comply with COVID standards, especially, I'm talking to Nancy, not Nancy, I'm sorry. I am talking to Nancy, but also with Sandra to see if we can bring in some support from Nancy Simons-Ruderman to help with some of the food inspections. So there's an example of, normally I would be doing that, but with COVID, I feel like it's important enough to just keep it going. I don't know if that's something that you guys, I just felt like you should know that in case you got any questions about who was coming into restaurants.
Okay.
The Mass Department of Labor Standards has been who's really been leading these COVID these COVID control plans and making sure that like specific sectors have to follow specific plans. And so they are now actually creating regulations because we're in Massachusetts. So, and that's 454 CMR 31, and that's going to incorporate the sector-specific standards into the Massachusetts regulations. It's going to keep the enforcement structure jointly shared between local boards of health and the Department of Labor Standards. We have gotten some complaints here and there, and we're addressing those, but the public comment period is going on right now, and it pretty much mirrors what the governor's order was. And I think there's been some question as to the governor's ability to pass some of the orders, so I think that this is another way of covering the work that they've done. So there will, once those regulations go out, there'll be another push by the health department to get out and make sure people have their COVID control plans and making sure that they comply, just so, to avoid any issues, either with non-compliance or if, you know, heaven forbid something happens, if organizations and workplaces are following those COVID control plans, it really protects them from liability. And then the last thing is the state is starting to create a COVID community impact survey. And so they're trying to get to all the different sectors of people that might have been impacted by COVID-19. And so you might see that come up. I'm going to ask Dan Filio if he would help me get the word out and try to get people to kind of let the state know how it impacted them. And I think that's going to inform some of the supports that they put in later. So that is my COVID update.
Okay, I got one quick question for you, Jane. Do you know anything about the possibility of having flu shots at the senior center?
Yeah, so there will be flu shots. I haven't gotten an exact date from the Berkshire Public Health Alliance. I believe that they're doing them. They're going to be doing them at the senior center. I believe that they're going to be doing them at the school, and I'm not sure where else. But usually, I think that we Dalton has at least 2 or 3 flu clinics, and so the school children, as you probably know, are required to get their flu shots this year prior to December 31st, and so there will be a big push on that. The problem is that the state has been really slow to roll out the vaccine. In fact, many pediatricians' offices aren't even getting allotted their vaccine at this time. So while the state says that there's not a shortage of vaccine, that has not translated into orders getting filled, and so those firm dates are a little bit slow coming. And if there already is one, then no one's told me about it.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions for Jane? Thank you, Jane.
You're very welcome.
Okay, next item. Item 10, the police chief search update. Joe, would you like to enlighten us on that, please?
Yeah, just say this is a real brief update. The committee's met twice. Again, the appointed members that were confirmed by this board on August 5th include Ms. Amy Aldridge, Mr. Michael Hinckley, Mr. Andy Pernick, and Officer and Union President Jeff Powell, myself, and Chief Riello as an advisor. So far, we have 13 resumes that have been received. The committee has reviewed the job description just to become familiar with it. I asked if there were any recommendations. There are none, so that's good. All the committee members have reviewed all the applicants. And we are taking steps to learn about assessment services that can also do background checks and different models of how to engage community in this important decision. So we had one firm that gave us a presentation last meeting. We're going to look at an additional 1 or 2 to learn what opportunities there are. And if there is a recommendation to look at a service like that, we'll bring that certainly to Sandra for review and discussion, and then to this board for any approvals that we need to move in that direction. But so far so good. One of the things that we talked about during our first meeting were, the candidate, kind of character and qualifications, and what we're looking for, and through this police chief search. And really, a couple of things that highlighted were certainly community policing, and great leadership that will also, look out for or look forward towards or look towards the police reform conversations that are happening at the state and national level, and how that may impact the way we manage our police services moving forward, and just kind of being that forward-thinking leader. But again, I want to say a big thank you to the committee members. They're putting a lot of work into this. We have a long way to go. We're not close to making any recommendations, but so far about 4 to 5 resumes have bubbled up to the top. But again, looking at taking those steps to possibly leverage an assessment service and background review, that kind of service would help us really look at the qualifications of these candidates to make sure we are picking the cream of the crop. The other thing that we discussed last meeting is actually, and Sandra, this is a question I have for you that we can talk offline, is just extending the net of recruitment outside of the area. We have some from Connecticut, New York, New Hampshire, but just even broader than that. I'm not sure what services we've used to this date for the recruitment. I know we're using MMA and our own job board, but I'm not sure what else we leverage outside that. But I'll talk to you offline about that. But that's about it for the moment, Mr. Chairman. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Joe? All right, thank you, sir. Okay, next on the agenda, it's a closeout on the old Dalton High. Sandy? Is she on?
I am.
Okay.
So before Ken left, he was able to arrange to, with lawyers involved, to finish so we had a withholding of monies. I can't remember what the name of that is, but we were able to agree to pay. So the withholdings of money is $35,300, and Ken was not willing to pay any of that until the lawyers agreed and the engineer agreed that on an amount for the final billing. So how it ended up happening is they didn't finish the job in time, so they were being assessed a penalty, and Ken negotiated a $5,000 penalty, which we will not be paying to them. So it's time to now release the rest of the funds that were used for, I'm trying to find the wording here. Retainage, that's the word I was looking for. So $30,300 of the retainage amount of the contract will now be paid to them, and this project will then be complete. So,
okay, and you're just looking for our approval on this?
yes, I guess.
Yeah, I remember Ken talking about this, and he did negotiate it down, and quite honestly, he said in this letter if it ever went to court, they would never withhold that much money from them. So I guess it sounds like he did a good job negotiating this.
Right, and there are reasons in that third paragraph about why going to court would probably not be in our favor. The whole, like, what spring conditions, and he did finish the site work and did it properly even though it was an extended completion date. I mean, if you know what it looks like down there, all that nice green grass growing.
Okay. Is there any questions for Sandra?
I think it's Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Dan.
The second paragraph's probably the most relevant paragraph, in that courts are reluctant to uphold damages or penalties unless actual damages could be demonstrated. And it appears that town council could not really find any evidence of actual damages. merely the fact that they missed the completion date doesn't necessarily indicate damages. So this seems reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah, they ran into some really heavy-duty cement that they weren't counting on, so that really slowed them up. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to accept this closeout of the old Dalton High.
And Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the close of the old Dalton High contract as recommended by prior town manager Ken Walto in the memo dated August 13, 2020.
Joe, is that figure 30,500?
Yes.
Okay, just to be clear on the figure.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Roll call vote. John?
Can I
Yes.
interrupt 1 second, please, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
So John, the number you said was 30,500?
Yeah, because it
It's 30,300.
says on here 500 on my thing.
It should be 300, John.
Yeah, that's a great catch. Jim.
Yeah, that is a great
down,
catch.
It's down on the bottom, it's 30,500.
Yep, okay, up at the top is the right, but down in the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph is wrong. So
Yes.
we're talking 35,300, right?
So
The final
the
payment would be 30,300 minus, because it's minus the 5,000 that we're withholding.
right.
30,300.
You got-
Yes, that's what we're going to pay them. So that was a typo on that 4th paragraph.
Okay, so it's 30,300.
Correct.
Correct,
We all in agreement?
yes.
Let me go ahead and revise the motion, so Brittany has it for the minutes as well. So revise the motion to accept the close of the old Dalton High School demolition contract as recommended by Ken Walto, previous town manager on August 13, 2020, for the final payment of 30,300, and Sandra will correct the notice on that number.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay.
And just for
Motion been made and seconded. Go ahead, Sandra.
I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Joe?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Bob, yes. All right, thank you, Sandy. That was a great job. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob.
I don't know how the heck you're doing everything. It's just like I'm blown away by your progress here.
Thank you, Bob.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay. Okay, number 12, town manager update. Sandy, do you have anything else?
No, I think I'm going to pass on that.
Okay, items for future agenda, items 13.
Yeah, so we just have the one that Jane mentioned for the information officer.
Okay.
And then also had a conversation with Jane earlier about the Waste Management Recycling Committee that we passed a few meetings ago. And she'll be working with Sandra and some others to work through that. So what I suggested to Jane is that the intent of that committee is to help her as a health agent for the transfer station. That if either her Board of Health or Sandra has any recommendations, to just bring those forward and we'll figure it out. So no rush, because everybody's doing a lot of work right now. So so she has a ball on that Waste Management Committee.
Okay, is there any other items for future agenda? Anyone? Okay. Remarks of the select board.
Yeah, Bob, I just want to give credit again to Taylor Staubach and her family for putting that together for the Pines cleanup that day on Saturday. It was great. It was great to be out there and walk around, and it was just an excellent opportunity to help out in the community.
Yeah, thank you guys for going. And I mean, like I said, my daughter and granddaughter went, and it seemed like it was a good time had by everybody. So.
Yeah, I'll second Mark's recognition of Taylor Staubach and the great job. Her and her husband Dan also. Dan was a big part of helping the day, and keeping things going smoothly.
Okay. Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for going, because that was cool to have representatives from the select board. Okay, anyone else?
Well, I would also like to thank John Boyle for providing a map to Taylor for the event too. Thanks,
Okay,
John.
that was good.
Do we have any issues with Patrica property? Were you, was the group allowed to go on that property?
They were.
Okay, great.
He reached out.
That's where majority of the so-called happy land was.
Yep. We cleaned up a lot of the both parts, the town and Patrica property.
Dan, you sound like you got a lot of experience of the happy lands.
Oh yeah, that's pretty funny. I take my kids up there a lot.
That's beautiful.
Yep.
I got one question for Mr. Boyle.
Yes.
Yeah, have any update on the train whistles?
Not really. Steve and I have gotten pretty well nowhere. But he is preparing it, I mean, with a face-to-face sit down with anybody in the, what's known as the Albany Administrative Railroad District.
Oh.
Nowhere with that. But Steve is, with my assistance, preparing an application for what's known as a quiet zone.
Okay.
But I have no hope of it getting anywhere in the near future.
No,
But it is, yeah.
Maybe
But it is a continuing issue among the town folk.
yeah, maybe they'll start giving us earplugs or something.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, this brings to the select board chair updates. We have been received numerous times, not numerous, a couple of concerns about what it costs for all these investigations and stuff were done. So we finally just got these numbers back in, and they will be passed on to the proper people afterwards. But we would like to go through it. Joe has prepared a slideshow of these. And Joe, would you put that up right now, please?
Yeah, Brittany, can you provide me host access so I can share the screen?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
would this be appropriate for a future agenda item, or is this appropriate for?
It's just an update, Dan. There's nothing.
Curious if, if it was on the agenda, if other townspeople would want to attend and see the slideshow, for example.
It will be available if they want. We can certainly send it out if anybody's interested in it.
We could also, I'm inclined to agree with Dan. It might require a very extensive discussion here.
Yeah, I think there's interest, but I just wanted to call that out. I'd love to see it, but maybe it could be put on a future agenda item.
Yeah, and to that point, Dan, I think, Bob, if we can review what we have just for the board and then put on the future agenda item for public conversation so everybody can digest the information and come back with questions.
Okay.
Dan, what do you think about that? Is that an appropriate way?
Yeah.
Put it on the next agenda.
Although they're gonna do it next time.
Dan, what do you think? John?
But it's not a big deal.
Yeah, fine.
Do that.
Okay. Brittany, are you there? Can you, or Sandra, if you can provide, did I take over as host so I can share the screen?
So who can chair? All participants?
Unmute. They can't hear you.
Sandra or Brittany, you guys there?
We're trying.
We were muted.
Okay.
So you do that in advanced sharing options?
We can share all participants.
Who can share? All participants?
All participants, yeah. That's fine. That should work.
Okay, it's all set. Should be.
Your
Yep.
shareable options.
Getting there.
There.
Okay, Bob, I should be able to see the screen.
This was prepared by the, we got their cost back from the lawyers. Thank you, Sandy, for all your work on that, and Becky from the police department. I just want to remind everybody, the entire select board, except Mark, he recused himself, voted to do these. investigations. So here's our cost summary. Officer John Marley investigated in hearing. Chief Jeffrey Coe investigation, hearing, and separate agreement. Interim Chief Riello contract costs. Summary budgeted liability, budget expense, and unbudgeted expense. How did we get here? November 23rd, 2019, a call for a well-being check not responded to by Senior Officer Marley. Policy, procedures, and rules and regulations violation followed from an internal affairs investigation and sustained. Just called termination of Officer Marley pending arbitration outcome. Internal affairs investigation related to Chief Coe resulted in a mutual separation agreement June 18th, 2020. The agreement paid out the balance of Chief's 3-year contract scheduled to expire on June 2021. July 27th, 2020, Select Board does not approve the recommendation for Sergeant Furlong as acting chief. Move on August 5th, 2020 to accept town manager's recommendation for interim Chief Riello. Okay, illegal. These are all the numbers that KP charged us, and we don't have breakdowns of what the private investigators were cost because the KP hired them out separately. So it was $28,767. A special hearing officer required to mitigate personnel relationship of town manager and the police chief. That cost $2,073.41. The separation agreement, payout of contract balance, which is scheduled to expire on June 2021, $141,339.60. The breakdown items with asterisks were already financially liable for the town. $102,028.64 for his salary, $14,411.76 for his vacation balance, $14,899.20 for unused sick time, and $10,000 health insurance offset. The cost for Chief Riello, a 6-month contract, was $55,000. And then you have your next chart, which shows the different various amounts for a total of $30,840.41. And this one's for the police chief. This is all his cost right here. And the red numbers were not non-budgeted items. That was $10,000 for his health insurance. Okay, in closing, total expense was $227,180.01. The budgeted liability was $131,339.60, which was salary, vacation, sick time, and budget expense for $55,000 was an internal budget transfer. The unbudgeted expenses for this was $46,266 and a penny. Okay, we'll put this on next agenda as a regular agenda item, and we'll go from there. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. If you put that together, did you do that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We just finished it up this afternoon. We just got the numbers back. Okay. Okay. Okay, number 16, the open meeting law complaint. To review, discuss, or respond to open meeting law complaint filed by Christopher Furlong dated on September 8th, 2020. Joe and I talked to Attorney Zesson today, and Joe is going to read our response. And then we'll entertain questions. Go ahead, Joe.
This might take a little while, so just bear with me, guys. Okay, in the complaint, Mr. Furlong alleges the Select Board violated the open meeting law by failing to release and disclose several sets of executive session minutes in response to a July 13, 2020 request for public records under General Law, Chapter 66, subsection 10. In that request, the complainant sought in relevant part the following records: all executive session minutes related to the Dalton Police Department, Chief Jeffrey E. Coe, Officer John Marley, an anonymous letter regarding 60 North Street, Apartment 17, former Dalton Police Officer Dorothy DeMoro, Alfred Donovan and/or APD Management, Nicole Woodward, Gerald Callahan, Julie Siskowski, Officer Deanna Strout, and Officer Buston Bozzella from November 2019 to June 19, 2020. This includes meetings in which these persons' items were discussed and or present. That was his request on July 13th. By letter of August 28, 2020, the town, through its Records Access Officer, informed the complainant that the town was in possession of the following records responsive to his request. Minutes from Select Board Executive Session held on January 3rd, 2020. Minutes from Select Board Executive Session held on January 13, 2020. Minutes from Select Board Executive Session held on January 27, 2020. Minutes from Select Board Executive Session held on May 7, 2020. Minutes from Select Board Executive Session held on May 14, 2020. Minutes from Select Board Executive Session held on June 8, 2020. Minutes from Select Board Executive Session held on June 11, 2020. Minutes from Select Board Executive Session held on June 18, 2020. The town advised the complainant that the minutes for the following executive session dates have not been released by the Select Board as the purpose for which the executive session was convened has not expired, and therefore will be withheld in their entirety. January 3rd, 2020, January 13th, 2020, January 27th, 2020, May 7th, 2020, May 14th, 2020, June 8th, 2020. Redacted versions of the minutes of the following Select Board executive sessions were provided to Mr. Furlong. June 11th, 2020, June 18th, 2020. However, portions of these minutes were redacted because the attorney-client privilege and the fact that the purpose for the executive sessions have not yet expired. In response to Mr. Furlong's complaint that these minutes should be released, the recommendation is to continue the withhold the following relevant portions of the minutes in their entirety. January 3rd, 2020, the board convened an executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law, namely Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 214, subsection 1B. Specifically, the board met to discuss its response to an anonymous complaint it had recently received regarding an unintended death. The purpose of the meeting to protect the privacy of the identity of the deceit and family or descendant and family has not expired. January 13, 2020, the board convened an executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law, namely Massachusetts Laws, Chapter 214, subsection 1B. Specifically, the board met to discuss its response to an anonymous complaint it had recently received regarding the unintended death. The purpose of this meeting to protect the privacy of the family has not expired. January 27, 2020, the board convened an executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, subsection A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law, namely Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 214, subsection 1B. Specifically, the board met to discuss its response to an anonymous complaint it had recently received regarding unintended death. The purpose of the meeting to protect the privacy of the family has not expired. May 7, 2020, the board convened an executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, subsection 21A1, to discuss complaints and potential disciplinary actions against an employee. The purpose of this executive session to protect the privacy of the employee has not expired. May 14, 2020, the board convened an executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, 21, subsection A1, to discuss complaints and potential disciplinary actions against an employee. The purpose of this executive session to protect the privacy of the employee has not expired. June 8, 2020, the board convened an executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the police union. The purpose of this executive session to discuss strategy regarding one or more grievances filed by the union has not yet expired, as the grievances are pending. June 11, 2020. First section of this meeting was an executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the police union. Purpose of this executive session to discuss strategy regarding one or more grievances filed by the union has not yet expired, as the grievances are pending. June 18, 2020, second section of this meeting was an executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the police union. The purpose of this executive session to discuss strategy regarding one or more grievances filed by the union has not yet expired as a grievance is pending. Finally, the town mistakenly failed to disclose June 1st, 2020 executive session minutes related to the board's discussion regarding co-separation agreement. Recommendation, releasing these minutes subject to redactions of attorney-client communication. With that, Mr. Chairman, I pause for a motion to accept this as our response and move to have Dalton Town Council draft the formal response to Mr. Furlong.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if this issue began on July 13th, why is the board now first time hearing about it on September 14th?
It was being looked at all the time, John, with everything going on with everybody at the town hall. We haven't had a chance to get to a lot of it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we're responding to the open meeting law complaint of Mr. Furlong that was just submitted about a week ago.
Okay.
You're absolutely correct, Joe, but this wasn't an issue, a serious issue, as it now dictates. I think this board should have been advised of this situation long before September 14th, as we had several meetings in between, both executive and regular meetings, to advise the Board of Selectmen that this issue had percolated to the surface and was being dealt with. But yet, at least myself, I can't speak for the remainder of the board, we're kept in the dark. So I find that very dismaying. And the second part of my question is, who redacted the minutes you did release?
Our attorney.
How come the board, that's traditionally the board's role.
No.
Yeah, past policy, the Board of Selectmen reviewed and redacted for release any executive board minutes.
Yes, but this is doing with personnel stuff, and we were advised by the attorney to have him do it.
So obviously we were deemed not capable of knowing this issue was going on or being able to participate in it.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, it is true.
No, it's not. It's been in the boxes. All the updates are in the boxes, John. You didn't sign one of them.
The updates?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this started with a formal records request from Mr. Furlong, and that was in the Selectboard box, and the records requests go through the records officer of the town and managed between that person and a town manager and legal. So the board was notified through that communication channel of our inbox.
I will go back and look for it.
Would it make sense to review these types of records requests as part of an agenda item? Should it come up in the future so we can all discuss these things? I don't know. I don't disagree with Mr. Boyle's kind of underlying assessment of this is, yeah, it's possible, I think, that we would have received that had we looked at the box, but I think as a group, reviewing it might be in our best interest.
Yeah, I think, Dan, in my opinion, we get into a slippery slope if the board is reviewing their own minutes to release. There's a records access officer who's in charge of releasing those with town manager and town council. That's a standard practice of public records request. If the board was to review and redact our own minutes without that, I think you get into a slippery slope.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I was surprised to hear that the board would have traditionally redacted, but
yeah, I was surprised to hear that as well, Dan, because I think that just opens up a can of worms.
Well, past policy has been for the board to review, redact whatever they deem is necessary, and then vote to release the minutes.
Yeah,
we didn't follow that. We didn't follow that procedure this time. Slippery slope or not, Joe. Wait a minute. If you say it's a slippery slope, that's fine. But we didn't agree to that. Nobody said to the board, maybe we should give this to the lawyer and let him redact them so we won't get on a slippery slope and disregard past practice. But we didn't do that.
John, past practice was we were doing that with minutes that were 11, 12 years old.
It was still the practice, Bob.
Well, this ain't 11 or 12 years old.
No. I guess we just don't have any confidence in the remainder of your board. I understand.
I think we have confidence in our records access officer and town manager to do the right thing, which they did in this case.
Yeah.
I would suggest past practice probably doesn't follow the good ethical standards, but that's a different story.
Good, then we should stop it. But that's what we did in the past, and we never got to the point where it could have been said, this isn't a good idea, it may violate ethical standards, reviewing your own minutes, let's discard it. Fine. But we never had that opportunity. You just took it into your own hands, you and Bob, and took it to the lawyer, and probably in conjunction with himself, redacted the minutes.
Not only that, John, the
Mr.
officer,
Boyle, are you suggesting that I redact the minutes with our attorney?
It's possible.
Are you suggesting that, Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move immediately to censure Mr. Boyle for suggesting that I violated some ethical standards with our town attorney and take that vote now. This needs to stop.
okay. A motion, I need a motion.
I move to censure Mr. Boyle.
I second it. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Dan? I'll come back to you.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Mark?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bob, yes. We'll talk about this later. We'll put it on the agenda and talk about it. I am done
Hey,
with...
don't I get to vote?
No, you don't. Once a censure happens under Robert's rules, you're not allowed to vote, Mr. Boyle.
Really? Wow.
I mean, I guess if we're talking about the direct answer that Mr. Boyle just gave,
Yes.
Mr. Diver,
That's what we're doing.
regarding the direct question, which was, and can someone repeat that direct question for me?
Are you accusing me to redact the statement, redact the minutes along with our town council? And his
Joe, you used the word suggest, not accuse.
Then I used the word accuse, Mr. Boyle.
I didn't accuse you of anything. You said, am I suggesting? And I said, yeah.
No, I
Yeah,
used
you did. Want to play the tape
Right,
back?
enough. All right, we're done. We're quiet. We're moving
I
on.
think the motion passed with 3 anyways.
Yeah.
I will say that this divisiveness, it does need to stop. I do agree with that. I also understand the concerns that are being raised in terms of people wanting the transparency and really being able to see into this process. But I think our attorney's response to this records request and this open meeting law complaint is completely valid, and particularly the fact that the arbitration is ongoing still, the personnel matter. So, I'm in agreement. I'll abstain from the vote.
Okay. There's a lot of things underlying that had this happen too. We haven't had a town manager. When Sandy first agreed, she was on vacation. And then we've had another problem with the current record manager. So there's been a lot which we'll discuss in executive session tonight. So, and plus, when it's on Tim's plate, it may not be number 1 on his plate. It might be number 9 on his plate. So people got to understand, we got a lot of requests for different things coming in, and we have another one that we haven't even addressed yet that still needs to be addressed, okay? And we're working on that. And people just got to lighten up and be patient. Okay, so back to the motion of having Tim authorize the vote to authorize town council to draft a response. Do I have a second on that vote?
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Is there any further response? Okay, roll call vote. Dan?
Yes.
Mark?
I'm going to abstain from this part.
Okay, Bob, yes. Joe?
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
And you can, what's John's vote on the?
What about John?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, John, what's your vote?
No.
Okay. I'm shocked. Okay. Okay, this leads us to our announcements. The town hall is now open during the usual hours from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Thursdays. Masks are required and social distances observed. We are in a significant drought still for residents and businesses. We need to minimize overall water usage, limit outdoor watering to handheld hoses, for watering cans to be used only after 5 p.m. or before 9 a.m. 1 day a week. Immediate step for communities, adopt and implement the state's non-essential outdoor water use restrictions for drought. Level 2 restriction calls for limiting outdoor watering to handheld hoses or watering cans to be used only after 5 p.m. or before 9 a.m. Limit or prohibit installation of new sod, seeding, or landscaping, watering within 48 hours after measurable rainfalls. Washing of hard surfaces, sidewalks, patios, driveways, sidings, personal vehicles or boat washing, operation of non-circulation fountains, filling of swimming pools, hot tubs, and backyard informal rinks. Implementing of drought surcharge or seasonal water rates, establish water use reduction targets for all water users and identify top water users, and conduct and target outreach group to help curb their use. The transfer station has new FY21 prices. The first sticker vehicle is $115. The second vehicle is $40. Bag prices are 30 gallons for the large bag, or a package of 10 for $4. A package of 10 for $40. A 15-gallon bag, it's a small bag, is $3.30. A package of 10 is $33. For a complete price list, go to dalton-mass.gov and click on the state transfer station button. The new hours for the compost and brush area are Tuesday to Wednesdays 2 to 5 and Friday to Saturday 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. A message from the Dalton Police Department. The lobby is open and there's a two-person limit. And processing of firearms permit. Firearm permit are processed between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. by appointments only due to COVID-19. Please call 413-684-0300 to schedule your appointment. No walk-ins are being accepted at this time. A check or money order for $100 made payable to the town of Dalton. Permits are taking between 4 and 6 months to process from start to finish. Please be advised, even though permits are processed during 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., there are circumstances that will prevent permits from being processed. We apologize for any inconvenience. The Dalton Library is now open 12 to 5 on Monday, Thursday, and Friday, and 10 to 5 on Tuesday, and 12 to 8 on Wednesday. Anyone in a high-risk population may schedule time in the morning to come in by themselves with no questions asked. Lobby pickup continues for anyone who'd rather not enter the building. Call 684-6112 for more information. I declare an executive session may have detrimental effect on the contract in regard to non-union personnel.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move to executive session for executive session in accordance with General Law, Chapter 38, subsection 21A2, to discuss, number 1, FY21 budget update in regards to non-union personnel, and number 2, town clerk matters, and not return to open session.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Dan?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bob, yes. We'll take a 5-minute break and hook up to the Zoom link that Joe sent out, okay?